what NA is and is not. If you've ever stood outside a meeting place and hesitated before opening the door, you already understand something about Narcotics Anonymous. Most of us arrive carrying assumptions. We think we know what we are walking into, even if we have never seen it. We picture rules. We picture experts. We picture someone telling us what we must do to fix our lives. Then we step inside. We sit down, and we realize the room is doing something different. It is not trying to manage us. It is trying to reach us. Hello, I'm a recovering addict named Steve. Welcome to On Life's Terms. This channel explores recovery through the principles of Narcotics Anonymous and through the lived experience of addicts learning how to live differently. The reflections started here are not official statements of Narcotics Anonymous and do not represent NA as a whole. They are simply my own experience, strength, and hope as a member of the fellowship. Tonight, we are going to talk about a simple but important idea: what Narcotics Anonymous is and what it is not. The first realization. A lot of us come into NA with a history of being handled. We have been handled by addiction, handled by consequences, handled by other people's fears, and handled by our own shame. We have been told what we are, what we will always be, and what we should do about it. So when we hear the word program, we assume it means a system. A system has supervision. A system has experts. A system has rules and enforcement. A system measures you and corrects you. But NA does not greet us like a system. NA greets us like a room full of people who understand. That is why so many of us remember our first meetings, even when we cannot remember much else from those days. We remember hearing laughter that did not feel cruel. We remember people saying things out loud that we thought could never be said. We remember seeing someone look another addict in the eye without disgust. For some of us, that alone is enough to keep coming back. What we discover, sometimes slowly, is that Narcotics Anonymous is a fellowship. That word sounds simple, but it carries the whole spirit of the program. A fellowship is not a chain of command. It is not a hierarchy. It is not a clinic, and it is not a court. It is a gathering of equals who share a common problem and common solution. In NA, our common problem is addiction, and our common solution is recovery, lived in community. What NA is. When we say NA is a fellowship, we are saying that the power of this program comes from connection. It comes from addicts talking to addicts. It comes from identification. It comes from shared experience. It comes from the simple act of showing up and being honest with each other. NA is a place where we can tell the truth. We can talk about what we used, what it did to us, and what it cost. We can talk about the lies we told, the isolation we built, and the fear that lived underneath it all. We can also talk about what happened after we stopped using. We can talk about cravings, grief, anger, loneliness, and the slow rebuilding of a life we once believed was ruined. None of that requires credentials. It requires willingness. This is why the fellowship matters. In addiction, many of us lived like we were the only person on earth who felt what we felt. We thought our shame was unique, our anger was unique, our emptiness was unique. Then we sit in a meeting and we hear our own story coming out of someone else's mouth, with different details, but the same heart. Something begins to loosen. The isolation breaks. That is identification, and it is one of the first gifts NA gives. What NA is not. To really understand NA, it helps to say clearly what it is not. Narcotics Anonymous is not treatment. Treatment can be life-saving. Many of us have needed detox, inpatient care, outpatient counseling, medication, therapy, and other supports. NA does not compete with any of that, and it does not replace it. Treatment is often guided by trained professionals. It may involve assessments, clinical plans, and structured interventions. NA is different. In NA, nobody is paid to guide your recovery. Nobody is licensed to diagnose you. Nobody writes your plan and checks your chart. We share what we did, and you decide what you will do. NA is not a religion. People from many backgrounds recover here. Some members are religious, some are not. Some came in angry at God. Some came in longing for God. Some came in with no language for spirituality at all. NA does not require you to adopt a belief system. NA offers spiritual principles, not a creed. It offers a path of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. It invites you to find a higher power of your own understanding. In that sense, NA makes room for growth without demanding conformity. NA is not supervision. Nobody in NA is your probation officer. Nobody is your parent. Nobody is your manager. Nobody has authority over your life. We do not police each other's choices. We do not enforce recovery. We cannot. Addiction taught many of us to resist being controlled, and control rarely creates transformation anyway. What creates transformation is truth, support, and the repeated practice of spiritual principles. Identification, not instruction. One of the clearest differences between NA and many other helping spaces is the way we speak. In NA, we do not lead with instruction. We lead with experience. We do not say, "Do this because I said so." We say, "This is what happened to me. This is what I tried. This is what worked. This is what did not." Then we leave room for you to decide what fits your life. That is not the same as having no guidance. Guidance is everywhere in NA, but it arrives in the shape of stories, not orders. A newcomer hears a member talk about calling someone before picking up, and that newcomer tries it. Another newcomer hears someone talk about taking a simple service commitment, and they try that. Someone hears a member describe making amends and staying clean through fear, and they begin to believe that courage is possible. The fellowship does not hand us a checklist. It hands us a mirror. Over time, identification becomes a bridge. We learn that our feelings are not signs that we are broken beyond repair. They are signs that we are human, and we are healing. When we hear someone describe the same panic, the same shame, the same obsessive thinking, we stop treating our inner life like a private disaster. We start treating it like something we can talk about and grow through. Shared experience is the message. NA's message is carried through shared experience. The program is not sustained by a single speaker, a single sponsor, or a single strong personality. It is sustained by a room full of addicts who keep showing up and telling the truth. One member talks about early recovery, when minutes felt like hours and every emotion felt sharp. Another talks about long-term recovery, when the crisis is not using but living, paying bills, raising kids, grieving losses, and staying spiritually awake. Someone else talks about relapse and coming back. Someone talks about depression. Someone talks about gratitude. Someone talks about learning how to be kind. All of that is the message, not because every story is the same, but because the pattern is recognizable. Addiction makes our world smaller. Recovery makes our world larger. Addiction trains us to hide. Recovery trains us to tell the truth. Addiction turns every problem into a reason to use. Recovery turns problems into invitations to grow. When that message is shared honestly, it becomes believable. We do not have to imagine recovery as a theory. We can look around the room and see it happening in real lives with real imperfections. That is why NA works for so many of us. It is not perfect people teaching perfect lessons. It is addicts practicing principles day after day and sharing what that practice looks like. No one represents NA. This is where another important misunderstanding can be cleared up. Because NA is a fellowship and the message is carried through shared experience. No one person represents Narcotics Anonymous. A member may be passionate, a member may be articulate, a member may have decades clean, a member may hold a service position. None of that turns their opinion into the opinion of NA. When any of us share, we are speaking for ourselves. We are offering our experience, our strength, and our hope. We are not issuing official statements. We are not defining the fellowship. We are not the authority. In fact, one of the ways selfishness can quietly creep into recovery is when we begin to speak as though our view is the view. That can happen in meetings, in service, even in casual conversations. It can sound like certainty. It can sound like confidence. But if it becomes personal authority, it pulls the focus away from principles and toward personalities. NA protects itself by refusing to be built on personalities. The fellowship stays healthy when we remember that the program is bigger than any one of us. The group conscience, not a single member's certainty, is how decisions are made. Humility, not dominance, is how unity is preserved. When we speak, we can speak strongly, but we do it as one addict among many. We leave room for other experience. We leave room for learning. We leave room for the newcomer who does not need our authority, but needs our hope. Why this matters for newcomers. All of this matters because newcomers are listening, even when they look bored, even when they look angry, even when they look like they are not listening at all. Newcomers are trying to figure out what this place is. They are trying to figure out whether they will be controlled, judged, or lectured. If NA feels like supervision, many will run. If it feels like religion, many will run. If it feels like treatment with a different name, many will run. But if it feels like a fellowship, something else becomes possible. A newcomer can sit in the back and breathe. A newcomer can hear that nobody is going to take their inventory for them. A newcomer can hear that they are not required to adopt someone else's beliefs. A newcomer can hear that recovery is not a performance. It is a practice. The newcomer can begin to trust that NA is a place where they can belong before they have it all figured out. That is one of the quiet miracles of this program. We do not have to become worthy to enter. We enter and we become willing and we grow. A fellowship of hope. So what is NA? NA is a fellowship. NA is addicts helping addicts. NA is a room where the truth can be spoken and the truth can be heard. NA is identification instead of instruction. NA is shared experience offered freely. NA is spiritual principles practiced imperfectly. NA is a place where we learn to live without using, and then we learn how to live. NA is not treatment, though it can support us while we receive treatment. NA is not religion, though it can deepen our spiritual life. NA is not supervision, though it can teach accountability through honesty and community. NA is not a platform for personal authority, because no one person represents the fellowship. What makes all of this real is the simplest thing. We keep showing up for each other. We keep listening. We keep telling the truth. We keep practicing the principles when it is inconvenient, when it is uncomfortable, and when it would be easier to go back to old ways. When addicts do that together, hope appears where despair used to live. Isolation fades. The idea of a different life stops being a fantasy and starts becoming a path where guidance lives. Some people hear that NA offers identification, not instruction, and they worry that it means nobody will help them. But most of us can point to moments when another member offered guidance that mattered. The difference is the spirit in which it is offered. In NA, guidance is usually an invitation, not a command. A member might say, "I did not know how to stay clean, so I called someone every day." Another might say, "I did not trust anybody, so I started by showing up early and staying late." Someone might say, "I was full of resentment, so I talked about it, prayed about it, and kept coming back until it loosened." That kind of guidance lands differently because it is grounded in humility. It does not say, "I know you better than you know yourself." It says, "I have been where you are, and here is what helped me." Sponsors fit into the same spirit. A sponsor is not a boss. A sponsor is not a therapist. A sponsor is not a representative of NA. A sponsor is an addict who is willing to walk with another addict and share how they have applied the steps. Even then, the sponsor is speaking from personal experience, not issuing official rulings. Service fits here too. Sometimes newcomers think service is about earning approval, proving that you belong. But most of us learn that service is one of the ways the fellowship stays alive. Making coffee, setting up chairs, greeting people at the door, reading in a meeting, cleaning up afterwards, taking a commitment that feels small. These are acts of connection. They keep us close to the message, and they keep the message available for the next person who walks in shaking. Freedom with responsibility. The lack of supervision in NA is not the same as a lack of responsibility. In addiction, freedom often meant doing whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted, no matter who got hurt. In recovery, freedom becomes something deeper. It becomes the freedom to choose a better action. It becomes the freedom to pause. It becomes the freedom to tell the truth, to ask for help, and to make amends when we fall short. Because nobody is supervising us, we learn to develop an inner sense of accountability. We learn to listen to our conscience. We learn to look at our motives. We learn to notice when fear is driving us, when ego is driving us, and when selfishness is quietly taking the wheel. We learn that we can bring those things into the light in a meeting with a sponsor or with trusted friends in the fellowship. And we can do it without being shamed. A system can enforce behavior, but it cannot create sincerity. A fellowship can invite honesty, and honesty can change a life. Over time, many of us discover that the freedom NA offers is the freedom to live on life's terms, not addiction's terms, right here, today. If you found something meaningful in this reflection, I invite you to stay connected with On Life's Terms. This channel exists to explore recovery through the principles of Narcotics Anonymous and through the shared experience of addicts learning how to live differently. If you would like to support the message of recovery, you can help in a simple way. Subscribe to the channel, share this video with someone who might need to hear it, and leave a comment about your own experience with recovery. Every time these conversations continue, message reaches someone who may still be struggling. Recovery is not something we keep to ourselves. It grows when it's shared. And if you're new to Narcotics Anonymous or still wondering whether you belong, I encourage you to keep listening, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep showing up. Because no addict ever has to do this alone.